This is an educational analysis of Adolf Hitler's early life, presented as a historical warning against extremism. Before the name Adolf Hitler echoed through history, before it was screamed by crowds and whispered in fear, it belonged to a boy. He was born on April the 20th, 1889, in the quiet Austrian border town of Braunau am Inn. It was an ordinary place for a child who would one day become a symbol of extraordinary evil. His childhood wasn't that of a monster, but of a boy caught between love and conflict, discipline and dreams. His father, Adolf Hitler, was a customs officer, strict, proud, and obsessed with authority. He had worked his way up from poverty and demanded the same obedience he gave to the empire he served. He wanted his son to follow the same stable path, a career in the civil service. His mother, Clara, was the opposite: gentle, patient, and deeply affectionate. She adored her son and defended him against his father's temper. To Adolf, she was love and safety. To her, he was everything. This tension between control and affection, authority and indulgence, shaped young Adolf's personality. It planted in him a defiance of authority and a longing for recognition. At school, he showed little interest in studies. Mathematics and science bored him. But when he drew, he felt alive. His notebooks were filled with sketches of buildings, streets, and monuments. Art gave him peace. Architecture gave him structure. He dreamed of becoming a great artist, convinced he was destined for fame. But his father saw art as foolishness. Their arguments became constant, sometimes explosive. Alois demanded discipline. Adolf rebelled. Then in 1903, when Adolf was 15, his father suddenly collapsed and died. It was both a tragedy and, for him, a strange kind of freedom. The voice of authority that ruled his life was gone. His mother, grieving and protective, allowed him to chase his dream. He left school early, convinced talent alone would make him great. For a time, he drifted through life, reading, sketching, and dreaming of recognition. In 1907, at 18, he convinced his mother to send him to Vienna, the center of art and culture in the empire. He arrived with confidence, believing success was inevitable. The city's grand architecture and museums overwhelmed him. He felt at home among its beauty. He applied to the prestigious Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, certain of acceptance. He poured himself into the entrance exam, but ignored the requirement to draw human figures. Instead, he focused on architecture, the only subject he cared about. Weeks later, the results came. His name was not on the list. He had failed. The Academy's verdict was harsh. Talented, yes, but his art lacked life. It was a devastating blow. To Adolf, it wasn't failure. It was rejection by a blind and corrupt world that didn't see his genius. Then came tragedy. His mother, Clara, fell ill with breast cancer. He returned home to care for her, doing everything he could to ease her suffering. When she died in December 1907, he was shattered. She had been his world, his one source of unconditional love. Now, with his dream destroyed and his mother gone, he was completely alone. He returned to Vienna in 1908 to reapply to the academy, but they rejected him immediately, without an exam. The dream was over. With no education, no money, and no direction, he fell into poverty. He lived in cheap hostels and sometimes slept in shelters. He survived by painting postcards of Vienna's landmarks for tourists. His art had become mechanical, lifeless, like his spirit. Vienna was a city of contrasts, beauty and poverty, music and misery. Hitler wandered its streets, invisible and angry, watching others live the life he felt he deserved. He refused to accept responsibility for his failures. He began to look for someone to blame. In the city's beer halls and public squares, fiery speakers offered simple answers to complex problems. They blamed foreigners, socialists, and Jews. Hitler listened. The bitterness inside him found a voice. Slowly, he absorbed their hatred, shaping it into his own ideology. His personal disappointments turned into political resentment. His beauty search gave way to an obsession with blame. By 1909, he was destitute, living in a homeless shelter, painting for survival, and ranting to anyone who would listen. He began to believe that he was not a failed artist, but a victim of a corrupt system. The boy who once dreamed of creating beauty was starting to see power in hatred. In 1913, Hitler left Vienna for Munich, Germany. Officially, he wanted to avoid Austrian military service. In truth, he wanted to escape his failure, but he carried all his bitterness with him. The following year, World War I erupted. For Hitler, the war was a salvation. It gave him purpose, discipline, and belonging, the things he had lost. He enlisted in the German army and served as a messenger on the Western Front. It was dangerous work, and he was twice decorated for bravery. For a man who had spent years adrift, the war gave him structure and meaning. He believed he had finally found his place. But in 1918, Germany surrendered. The empire collapsed, and millions were dead. For Hitler, the defeat felt personal. He refused to believe Germany had truly been beaten. Instead, he embraced a poisonous lie that the army had been stabbed in the back by traitors at home, communists, politicians, and Jews. That lie became his truth. He returned to Munich filled with anger and despair. The dreamer who once painted cathedrals now dreamed of vengeance. He joined small nationalist groups that promised to restore German pride. For the first time, he discovered a new talent: public speaking. The same intensity that once fueled his art now poured into words. When he spoke, people listened. His anger, once buried, now gave him power. He began to twist his own failures into ideology. He told others that the same enemies who had ruined him had also ruined Germany. The pain that had once been personal became political. The failed artist had found a new medium: rhetoric. His speeches replaced paintings. His hatred replaced imagination. This historical path led to the Holocaust and World War II. We study this not to glorify, but to ensure that the dangers of extremism are never forgotten. The story of Hitler's youth is not a tale of destiny, but of warning. It shows how disappointment and resentment, left unchecked, can evolve into hatred, and how hatred, once given a platform, can consume nations. He could have been an artist. He could have built beauty. Instead, he built destruction. The boy who sketched cathedrals became the man who burned cities. The young dreamer who sought love became the dictator who spread fear. His story reminds us how fragile humanity can be when anger replaces empathy and blame replaces understanding. We study his early life not to humanize him, but to understand how such darkness takes root and to recognize those same warning signs in our world today. The child from Braunau am Inn dreamed of greatness and left behind devastation. His life remains a stark reminder that hate, when left unchallenged, can grow from one man's bitterness into a tragedy for the entire world. This is an educational analysis of Adolf Hitler's early life, presented as a historical warning against extremism.